All right, we're just gonna get going here. We're gonna start the stream. If it craps out, it craps out, but we're going for it. I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna record for YouTube. I'll just download the VOD, so hopefully that works. Let's just get going here. Okay, so yesterday we worked on getting our geckos running here. I'm gonna see if my chatbot's up. And it is not. What is going on? Yeah, man. I tweaked a couple more settings and we're just gonna go for it. My chatbot is just, since I signed in from my other account, I've got to re-pop out the chat here, and then I'll turn on our new chat. Let's see. Pop out chat. I'll turn this back on in OBS here, and then we should be okay. But yeah, so I'll do some testing. I'm gonna see if I can hardwire into my Mac via Ethernet, and then see if I can Elgato out of my main PC, my development computer, into the Mac, and see if I can get streaming more consistent on Mac versus Linux. And it looks like we're already dumped down to 20 FPS, so I don't know if that's the chatbot or what, but that is just not okay. Yeah, it can't hurt to test. But anyways, let's get going here. So yesterday we got our geckos going. Now, we do need, we do want to be able to get, let's see, gecko directions. So we need to be able to give us a left, right, and down gecko. Right now we've only got up, and it only walks up. But it shouldn't be hard because we've got all the stuff we need. We've got all the animations for walking up. We just need to rotate it. Yeah, we'll test it. I think that's a good idea, aka Bob, to get a separate encoding machine, because this is just driving me crazy, not being able to just, like, I want to ultimately I just want to come into the room, turn on the computer, and the setup's already ready, so we can just get going. So like, I don't like the idea of adding a whole nother computer and a whole nother chain of stuff, but if that gets our stream more stable at better frame rates, I'm all for it. And our A sprite is just jacked, so yeah, I would be able to use Streamlabs as well at that point. And that was the kind of, I was wanting to entertain that idea of switching over to PC or Windows, even though I hate Windows. But I gave it a good honest shot today, and I just could not get Love to work easily. And I can't even get A sprite to work easily. Jesus. What is going on? It's just like the universe just doesn't want programming to happen today. I don't know what to do, man. I can't even quit this shit. Dude, I think you might be cursed. I'm not like trying to blame you or anything. I'm just saying it makes sense. At least the stream is at 60 FPS, like that's good. but nothing's working. Dude, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I don't know. Your mod badge is just crashing everything. Dude, I don't know what can we do at this point other than freaking reset our computer? Like, what do you want from me, A-Sprite? Do we just give it some time and maybe it comes on? I mean, that's pretty jacked, right? It's just not gonna work. Like I say, I like Linux and then this happens, you know? I like Linux for the coding environment, not because all the bullshit Linux makes you have to do. I don't know what I can do, man. I don't know what to do. Well, we can't get A-Sprite working today, so we've got to figure something else out to do. Let's see what else we can do. Let's take a look. And you know what? We can take today and we can do a little a new mechanic for the game here. So like, you know, we're a wizard or an arcanist in our game, and we're gonna have to be able to cast spells and stuff. So we can get started on the beginnings of what's gonna be our spell casting mechanics. And we're at 16 FPS, 8 FPS. Jesus, this is so frustrating. So let's get to adding a little in the game. We've got spell casting, and in order to cast a spell you need focus. Like what we're gonna call it, I've got here, let's open up GIMP and I can show you. So in order to cast spells you need focus, right? Now this is like your, you know, the bar that drains when you cast a spell. I want to call this Manus Minutia. I don't know how to spell minutia. And minutia not in like the little sense, but in the specific sense. So like the minutia, like the details of it, not the tininess of it. So like Manus, I guess, kind of like, I mean, you know, like using your hands, like in Spanish, manos, but it's like mana too. It's like your magic almost. So it's like you might have a bar of manus, right? As you focus, as you use it, it'll drain, right? And then it'll repopulate back up and fill up your bar. So it's just like a bar that'll be, you know, you've got a certain amount, and when you use it, it drains. When you don't use it, it replenishes a little slower than it drains, right? And then our manus is how you focus to cast a spell, but that won't be the only way to cast a spell. You need another thing. So like you need an element. So like the element that you're holding is gonna be representative of what type of magic you can cast. So if you are holding a torch and it's on fire, you can use your manus to focus your attention on that element so that you can cast out a magic spell in relation to your element. So the fire would be a fire cast spell, right? So you need your element, you need to use your manus, but then there's going to be another thing to determine whether or not you're successful in your casting of your spell. There's going to be another kind of bar here. So like imagine this bar being like your success your success of your focus. So like in order to cast something, you need to be able to focus. But if your focus is poor, when you're using it, you're not going to cast your spell. So there's going to be like a little window. There's going to be a window of success. So like this is like a successful cast of your spell. And then there's going to be some sort of indicator where your focus actually lands as you use it. So for right now, before we get too far into this, let's just give us an amount of manus to use. And when we hold spacebar, our manus is going to deplete. When we let go, it's going to slowly come back up. That's going to be a little bar on our HUD. And I was going to say we can do that without a sprite, but we might need a sprite to give us a little denoter for it. But let's start there, and we'll see if a sprite starts to boot by the time we're doing that. So I guess it would make sense to put it with our player character, so we can give ourselves 100 manus to start with. Now we need to be able to render the value of this manus. So since we're rendering our player, and I'm curious, I want to do a love.graphics.rectangle, and we will pass it in the fill type and the X and the Y and the width and the height. Let's just do a 10 by 10 red rectangle. So how we do red is a love.graphics.set color gets a fully red RGB and full opacity. So we should be drawing a red rectangle, and we are. So our render is working for our manus. Now, I don't like the HUD being this bright. I kind of want like a darker gray. If I could open a sprite, I would be able to see what our color palette is, and then we can snag the actual motherfucker. Can't do it. Okay, well, I don't know what to do. Okay, let's try to get our manus rendering on screen. For now, I'll put our HUD to a different color. So when we go, I think it's in our play state. When we render our HUD render right here, we're setting the color to be yellow. Let's not do yellow. Let's do like a dark, or I'm trying to, maybe like a light gray. If it's like a stone gray, then maybe let's do color hex picker. Okay, so let's do like a stone gray color kind of. So this will be 142, 146, 171. So we'll keep that up while we type this in. And we'll set our color here. And it'll be 142 by 146 by 171. Okay, and then full opaqueness. Now that should change the render of our HUD to a gray, which is looking better. I think it should be darker than that, but we want to, oh, and then look at that random red gecko we saw. That's funny. We need to make sure we set our entity's color to be white right before we render it, so that doesn't happen. So before we render, see, look, we're doing this. I don't know why we're doing this after we render, but we should do it before we render. Okay, no more red geckos. We will have color variants for the geckos, but HSprite isn't working, so can't do that. Now, let's place our Monas bar on our HUD here so that we can see it, and we'll give it an appropriate width. So we'll go into our player class, and we want to put this at the X. It could be 0. I don't really care for the X. We want to put it at the screen height limit for our Y. So screen height limit for our Y, that would put us at the very top of our HUD. And the width and the height, we can say, let's just see what 100, like 1 Monas is 1 pixel, essentially. We'll see what that looks like. And then width and height, and let's do maybe 3 pixels tall, or let's do 5 pixels tall, see how that is. So now we should have a Monas bar, and we are not rendering it because our player is being rendered before our HUD. So we want to make sure our player render, either our Monas needs to be separate of our character, or we need to render our character differently here. I'm gonna yank our Monas from our player here, and I'm gonna go into play state, and we'll put, after we render the scene, we render the HUD, and then we'll render Monas here. So we'll render the HUD, and then we'll render our Monas, but we need to give our player, we need to take our Monas from our player here, and we'll put it at the play state. Okay. We're at 49 FPS. Let's see. Play state. Now let's give, after we give our player here, we're gonna give a Monas to our play state to be equal to 100. Now we're not actually doing anything with that yet, but let's see if our Monas is in fact rendering. This should be Monas render, so we'll put in Monas render. In all working title names, I just needed a name to call it. Wow. That looks pretty wild. It looks like blood dripping, but if that's our Monas, we need to render our title with a set color black. So we'll do that here. We'll set the font, set the color, and then render that. Okay, so our Monas needs to be maybe 3 pixels like I thought instead of 5. And then what we can do, we'll give it 3 pixels so it's not so tall. And then what we can do here is the width, instead of the width being 100, the width is going to be our actual Monas value. And then here's the fun part, because we can go to our update and say if love.keyboard.is down, and we can check for space being down, then we want to drain our Monas, right? We're using the Monas we've got, so what we can do is say self.monas gets its current value minus whatever value we want it to drain by. It probably should be less than 1. We'll see what happens if we just have a -1. So look, I press it and it drains. It doesn't refill just yet, but it drains. We probably want it to be a lesser value than that so it doesn't drain as fast. And part of the game is, you know, as you get stronger, your Monas will drain less and less as you get stronger in controlling your focus. So right now we've got spacebar draining our Monas bar, but we want it to grow to meet up to where its max level is. So we can have like a Monas max value here. and the max modus you can get is 100. And what we can do is in our update function, we say if our self.modus is less than the modus max, and we want to make sure, we would probably want to put this in the else of our space, because we don't want to increment our modus just if our modus is lower than our max, because as we're using it, it would go ahead and give us more. But we want to do it if our spacebar is not pressed down. So we can do else if. We can add the else if here, and we can say else if our modus is lower than our max, then we're going to go ahead and regenerate our modus. So we're going to say our modus comes back to us at half the rate it drains from. So we can say a 0.25. Now, if what we can do also is like this doesn't limit our modus to be the max. So what we can do is we can limit our modus drain so that it can't go less than 0, so we don't ever have a negative modus. And we would do that by saying a math.max, and we pass in our decrement or 0. So it'll give the bigger of those two values. So once it's a negative number, it would be locked in at 0, and then we wouldn't drain it anymore. And then else if our modus is smaller than the modus max, then we would go ahead and give us modus back. Now, we also want to limit this. We want to limit it to the math.min. So the lower of two values either are incrementing modus or 100. And we can put modus max in here because that's what it is. So let's see. We've got a bar. Pressing space drains it, and if we let go, it builds up. If we hold it, it goes down, and if we let go, it goes up at a slower rate. Let's see if it stops at 100. It does. And then if we were to print up the value of our modus, we should see that if we keep it held down like this, it doesn't go into the negative, but it gets clamped at 0. And you can kind of see that. As soon as I let go, it's already right there. So that's looking pretty good. I think we want our modus bar to be 2 pixels, not 3. And I want a slower regeneration. So let's do a 0.2. And then when we go to render it, we'll say it's actually a value of 2 here. And then let's get the geckos off screen just so, or at least less geckos, so that we don't have to just look at so many. I mean, I guess I could keep them on. I'm just like trying to focus on modus, not the gecks. Where is it? Scene. Yeah, let's not give us 100 geckos. Let's just give us 5 geckos. Okay. So we've got our modus. It gets locked at 100. Can't be more than 100. And when we hit space, it drains. And when we let go, it grows. So that's only part of our magic casting, right? So like we have to use our, and what we're calling modus minutia is our focus, if you want to think about it like that. Like we have a certain amount of focus, and as you concentrate, your pool of focus goes down, and you can't continue to cast spells if you're low on focus. So hey, they're not dumb, they're just stupid. I like your chickens, but they are definitely not the smartest of the bunch. Let's get our entity render off here, that's just bugging me, and then we'll worry about our other stuff here. Okay. Alright, so we've got the first implementation of our modus bar, which I'm liking. It's feeling at a decent rate. Depends on our other status here. So how might we go about implementing this next part? And we're at 17 FPS. That's crap. So if we pull up GIMP, so we've got our Manus working. You know, we've got a little bar. Now, for the moment, we're going to assume we have an element in our hand, and we want to give a little bar. So like this is like the bar of whether or not your spell actually gets cast or not. So if we have like a full bar and only a small range that it would be active, then we need a moving piece. So like if my cursor is our spell cast, so like this gets a little confusing, but like if you imagine you don't get any cursor on your cast spell unless you're using focus to actually try to cast. Now, as soon as you use focus to cast, you don't automatically cast it. You have to balance your Manus to basically achieve a successful cast. So like you'd have to do, I guess like as soon as you hold your Manus, you'd get a casting bar. And as you hold it, that bar would go up. And then when that bar hits your cast range, that's when you actually successfully cast a spell. And the bar might start in the middle, because the idea is until like people have like a wavery of mind, like just because you're trying to focus on something doesn't mean that that's the only thing in your mind at the moment. So to kind of like to do that, there's this aspect of like a waviness of your mind. So this bar will be naturally changing. Like it might be modifying itself by a couple or only a few, but it's not as easy as holding your Manus until it reaches this casting zone, because this variable is constantly changing because of the waviness of your mind. So if you think about like fishing in Stardew Valley, like you can't just tap to keep it in that green range. It depends on the fish. Like sometimes the fish is really pulling, or sometimes it's chill. So you have to kind of adapt to the waviness of your mind to kind of keep it balanced in this casting zone. And then anytime your bar, whatever we call this, is in the casting zone, then whatever element you're holding will successfully cast a magic spell around you. So that's the kind of idea to get the spell casting up. And then, you know, if you're holding a lantern, maybe it'll be a fire. If you're holding an ice shard, it might be ice cast around you or whatever. And we can have different, you know, like there might be like a circle casting spell, or there might be a flamethrower casting spell, or might be like shards coming out casting spell. Like there's like maybe ice has like the outwards, maybe fire has the circle, or maybe we have you pick what type to cast, you know, once we get into it. But let's try to get this idea of a casting bar. So like if we call our Manus bar our focus, then we can have a casting bar, or just called cast bar, I guess. Rock the cast bar. Yeah, we can have a cast bar, and then there's like a cast range that we get. And then we also have a casting, or like a focus level. So like if our Manus is like how much focus we exert, then the focus level, whatever we want to call that, what do we call focus level? Like what could we call it? Like a lucid level, or like a, what could we call it? Yeah, what can we call the thing that, like the output of your focus? Work product. I don't know. If we have a placeholder name for it, it would be better so we can kind of develop for it. So maybe this could be what? I don't know what we can call the focus output, because then there's going to be a successful cast range on our cast bar, and then we can just call it focus, because we've got our manus minutia being called manus. So let's call our focus bar just focus. And then we'll have a successful cast zone as well. So let's try to get an on-screen depiction of this, and then see if we can't tie a focus bar element to our casting bar. Let's see if we could do that. So if our bar is 100 wide, our cast bar would be a width of 100. So let's try to just render a casting bar here. So if we go to our play state, we'll go to our manus render, and after our manus render, we'll render cast bar. And we'll call this manus bar, I guess. Okay, so let's set this color as just pure black. And then we will fill a rectangle, a black rectangle. Same X, a screen height limit +2, so it'll be right beneath our manus bar, and a width of not our manus, but our total focus bar, which is 100, and then a height of also 2. So now we should have a cast bar right beneath our manus bar. Cool. So we've got our manus. It's draining and replenishing. Now our cast bar, we need a focus element, a focus, whatever you want to call it, a focus. What do you call the thing on a scale, on those old timey scales where you like move the weights? Like what is that little thing called? Because we need that to be our little focus bar. So we can say we have a love.graphics.setColor of white to be our little focus bar, but we want to call it, what do we want to call it? Focus level? I don't know. Focus level is like the amount, but the focus indicator, you know, like what do we can call it focus indicator or something. I want better names for these, but for now that's making sense. So it's going to be a little tiny rectangle, and then it's going to be not at 0, but for now, like we need it to adapt its position. So we need it to be at focus indicator .x, or just focus indicator X, and then a Y of the same as our casting bar. So a screen height limit +2, and then instead of 100, it's going to be a little square. So it's going to be a width of 2 and a height of 2. So it should be. Now we need to initialize this focus indicator X variable so that we know where to render that. It'll start out at 0, so we'll init it, as 0. So we'll say, and you know what? Yeah, we'll put it as self.focus, focus bar, oh, focus indicator X gets 0 upon initialization. So we need to go put this focus indicator variable here. Okay. How did we get in our entity walk state? Okay. So it is a self dot focus indicator X. Now what happens when we use our Manus, our focus indicator needs to move by a certain whatever value, and ultimately we need to limit it also so it doesn't go past our 100 or whatever. But we can do this like when Manus is down, self.focus indicator X gets to be, and we're going to limit it a lot like we limit, but in the opposite direction, because our focus indicator needs to go up when our Manus is going down. So we need to limit this to be a minimum value. So math.min, and the two values we're going to pass in are going to be our self.focus indicator X plus a certain rate to change it by. We'll just put a 1 for now, see how that looks, and a max, which is our self.manus max. So if we hold down, our focus indicator should go up by 1 every frame. And then else, if space is not held, our focus indicator should go, and we wanna math.max this because we don't want a negative value. So we would say that we would decrement our focus indicator X by 1. So it'll fall at the same rate it grows, but we clamp it to 0. And we do need one more variable here, but let's see if this works. We've got our Manus. As we hold plus, our focus indicator goes up. So the idea is if we have a range where our successful spell cast would work, then we need to balance our focus indicator to kind of live in that area for a successful spell cast, and our Manus is still running out because we have to balance it. So if we have 0 Manus, our focus indicator should not be going up. So I think that's one thing we need to make sure we've got. So if our Manus is 0, focus indicator cannot go up. So let's make sure we've got that. We can say if self.manus is greater than 0, then go ahead and increment our focus indicator. Now, let's see what that looks like. We need to shift the X to be 2 pixels to the left for our max focus indicator level. Oh, and then look at that. We need to also decrement our focus indicator if space is held and Manus. Oh, it should be small, greater than or equal to 0. Then we need to, well, let's see. No. We need to decrement it if we can say if self.manus is equal to 0, then we'd want to go ahead and decrement anyway, and we'll lock it at 0. So we'll try that. Okay. Yep, we just used our Manus and our focus indicator fell all the way to the floor. And then, so look, if your Manus is running low and you keep trying to focus, you're not going to get up to that successful cast range. So it's like you got to have enough Manus to cast a successful spell, you know? And then, of course, as you level up, you might get more more focus, but we also need this wavery mind concept, because right now it just goes up by a constant effort. And let's limit it. Let's limit it to be not the minus.max, but a minus.max minus 2 because of the width of our focus indicator. So we've got, yep, it goes to the end there. Now we also need like a little depiction of a successful cast range. So I think what I might do for these testing purposes, I might make our Manus drain a little slower and make it regen a little faster, just so we can test these things faster. We'll call it, let's just give us some constants here so we can do it. We'll call it Manus drain. And we'll get Manus regen. So right now our Manus drain is about 0.5 and our Manus regen is 1. So let's give us a Manus drain of like 0.4 or 0.35 and a Manus regen of like a 1.2. And then we'll modify not by these values, not by this, but by a self.Manus regen. And then we'll drain it by a self.Manus drain. And this should be Manus regen, Manus drain. And then our plus 0.2. Oh, that's our focus indicator. So we need a focus, a finding focus variable, but it'll be focus indicator -1, so that should be the Manus drain right there. Let's see if those are still working. Nope. Manus regen. It should be a self.Manus regen. Are we not doing that? Self.Manus regen. We have that, don't we? Oh, main regen. What the? Yeah, Manus regen. Okay. So Manus drains a little slower. So we have a little bit more to play with now. Manus drain should be more. Cool. Okay, so now we need a space. I feel like our whatever we update our focus by needs to be a little smaller. So our focus indicator, it's this value right here. This 0.2 should probably be a 0.1 or 0.15. Okay, that's looking good. So this is good for testing purposes. We just need a way to see what area of our casting bar counts as a successful cast. So we need to kind of render some colors there. We can put green for explicit, or green is good, so like successful cast. So we can render a whole bar there wherever our successful cast range is. And then we could swap a boolean, or for right now we'll just be able to see it, and then we can work on our waving of the mind aspect of our focus indicator. So we'll try that. We'll put, after our cast bar render, we're rendering our focus indicator. So before that, we need to set our color to be green. And I don't think we have. What we can do right now is go to our constants and we should have a colors. We didn't type it, but we've got a colors here. I'm going to add colors so we can find it. And we can just give us a constant called green, and we set it equal to the values to set our green color, which is an RGB value of 8 bits, full opaqueness. So now we should be able to just pass green into our set color and it'll be there. So we just say set color to green. And then we're going to want to render, and we can put This is our successful cast range. Successful cast range. And we'll put in a love.graphics rectangle. Type is fill. And our X position needs to be a certain amount up. If our whole bar is 100, maybe we want it at like 65. And then it's going to be the same height as our casting bar. So a screen height limit +2, 2 pixels down from our HUD. And then we want it a width of maybe 20 and a 2 pixel height. So now we should have a little green bar for our successful cast range. It looks just white. So Y is we're setting our color, then we're filling it. Yeah, why is it white? We set our color here. This is our focus indicator. Okay, the only thing I could think of is that this green, we literally populated our constant screen with just the color white. RGB, R should be 0, G should be 255, blue should be 0, and then that should actually be green. So we'll go back and we'll run it. Okay, we've got a little green spot for our successful cast range. So something like this. So as you use your manus, your focus, your bar drains, and then this little focus indicator, whenever this little focus indicator is in your green successful cast range, your cast will be a success. So if you don't have enough manus, you can keep it there, and then you don't have enough manus to keep it up there. And if you spam it, you can't cast any spells because your manus is drained. And then you gotta wait, your regen of your manus goes up, and then you can come in here, successful cast, successful cast, successful cast. Now, this is almost everything we wanted, except we want this idea of this unfocused mind. So yeah, you gotta use focus to raise your focus to get to the successful cast range, but it's not always that easy because your mind can't always focus on the thing you tell it to. So we need this kind of random adjustment of the focused indicator that kind of throws you off. So you have to really balance your manus in order to get a successful cast. So we need this idea of, we can do either positive and negative values or just positive. Well, I'm not sure how that'll work, because it's almost like, here, I got an idea. If we've got, if you imagine a value from -5 to +5, that's the kind of range of wavery mind you have. So if that value is constantly going up to 5 and back down to -5 and up to 5 and back down to -5, if it's like that, then we just modify our focus indicator position by that value that's going up to the positive and down to the negative. It'll give a weird shifting of it. So we would want to only apply that change if our spacebar is held down. That makes some issues because, okay, if we only update that value if the spacebar is held down, and we only update our focus indicator if that space is down, then I think we can get away with kind of tweaking our thing like that. So let's try to get a number on screen that starts at -5, and anytime space is held down, actually anytime your focus indicator is going up, we want to modify this value at a certain rate, which we don't know yet. But let's try to see if we can do this. We'll call this wavery mind or something, or unfocus, or I don't know what we can call it. Let's just call it unfocus for now. So unfocus will get 0. It'll start at 0. And we want to do anytime our focus indicator is going up. So let's go to our update. In our play state. So we want our unfocus. Well, hold on a sec. All our Monas stuff is in our play state here, but where are we? Okay, I really just missed the update function here. So if let's give us some notes here. Like this is gonna be Monas drain. And then if Monas is greater than 0, we're going to go ahead and give us this is Monas regen if space isn't held down. And then this is our focus indicator negating if our Monas is 0. So this is draining focus when no Monas. And then else if our Monas is smaller than our Monas max, then we're going to go ahead and Monas regen. So we want to only update this unfocused value when we are incrementing our focus, which is the same time we do our Monas regen. That sounds right. So this would be focus focus regen or focus charge or something like that. Focus, more focus. Focus gain. Now this is where we want to modify this value, and we'll say if our self.unfocus. We'll say if our self.unfocus is smaller than 5, then we're going to go ahead and increment it. Maybe by 0.5. So we'll put an if here. And then we want to say self.unfocus becomes focus higher. So this is the upwards incrementation of that variable of the waviness of the mind. And if our unfocus is smaller than 5, we're going to do that. We would want to say else if our self.unfocus is ever greater than 5, which it will be, then we want to reset it to 5 and then start decrementing it. So we need another variable to keep track of to see whether or not our focus is going up or going down, or not our focus but our unfocus variable is going up or down. So we'd want to say if it's smaller than 5 and self.unfocus up, which is going to be a Boolean, then we would want to increase our unfocus. And then if our unfocus becomes greater than 5, we're going to set it equal to 5 and become self.unfocus up false. Now we need a better name than that, but I just want to see if I can get this variable on screen, and then we can worry about pretty names. So we need to initialize our unfocus up to be true, so that since we initialize at 0, we should increment this by 0.05 every frame, and maybe this probably needs to be a lot lower. We don't want it throwing off our focus indicator so much, we just want it to be an extra level of difficulty. So we would want to increment by a 0.25, and then if it's greater than 5, we're going to become unfocus up false. That's an awful name. But then we want to say is self.unfocus is smaller than 5 and not self.unfocus up. This is a terrible way to write this, but I'm just trying to get it done. We're gonna say, so that's gonna be if this value is supposed to be getting smaller, then we're gonna go ahead and decrement it. So no plus here, but a minus. We don't become unfocus up again until this value reaches -5. We could do it, and you know what? Yeah, maybe we don't worry about negatives. Maybe we just get a value from 0 to 5. That value is going to change, up to 5 and down to a 0, up to 5, down to 0, and that number is what we modify our focus indicator X position by. So it'll be updated by a couple more, and then less, and more, less. So it adds a little bit more balancing you have to do. And we have to make sure that we'll have to play with it, but we'll see if it's, let's see, if it's smaller than 5 and our unfocus is up, we increment it. If we're bigger than 5, we're going to reset our unfocus value. We're going to become unfocus up, and then it'll say if smaller than 5, greater than, okay, yeah, that should work. Then we'll say if our unfocus is smaller than 5 and we're going down, we're going to decrement, and then we need a last thing that says if our self.unfocus is equal to 0, then, or actually the better way to do it is smaller than 0, because it won't be perfectly equal to 0 when we subtract 0.25. If it's smaller than 0, we're going to set our unfocus to be exactly 0, and then we're going to become unfocus true. So we need to initialize our unfocused value to true, and then we need to print it up, and then we can see if we've done this right. So our unfocus, and it's unfocus up actually gets true. So we need to go back here. Unfocus up gets true. That's a terrible name. We'll get a better name. But let's print up this unfocused value, and it should be a number from 0 to 5 and back down to 0, back up to 5, and it should just wane like that. So let's see if our unfocused value is, and we'll print it, yeah, we'll just print it after we do our focus indicator. We'll say love.graphics.print, and what we want to print is the focus value, and we'll put, it's like the focus modifier, and then we're going to put in our string of our self.focus, not focus indicator, but our self.unfocus. Yeah, it is unfocus. Okay, so we pass in that string and we pass it in. We want it to be, an X and Y is going to be, we can put it right above our HUD, so it'll be an X of, let's just say 5. A Y of our screen height limit minus maybe 5, and then X and Y, that's all we need. So we should be good there. Let's put unfocus, okay, 155 and our play state's crashing. That means we've forgotten end somewhere. We've got takes in a string, takes, and then an X and a Y. That should be okay. Huh. Love.graphics.print. That should be printing the value. It's saying, yeah, we need a end to close if at line 38. We must have missed something here. Oh, we need else if and else if. Okay. Okay, so our unfocused value is not working as expected. And it's way huge. Let's raise it by another couple pixels here. Okay. Yeah, we want our focus, our unfocused value. It just needs to go from 0 to +5 only when spacebar is held and we actually have monos. So we need to like do something better here. Let's pull focus gain out, or unfocus. Actually, yeah. Let's pull out unfocus from this stuff, and we'll just do it separately. We are checking for the space input here, so we want our unfocus to be part of our spaces down, not part of our spaces not down. So we would want to say this like, as long as our monos is greater than 0, meaning we have monos to cast, then we want to put in our unfocus, and we'll put, here is the unfocus. Let's see if that helps us. So it's 0, we press it, it goes up to 5, and we need it to go back down. So it's not going back down properly, so it's going, focus is smaller than 5, and we're focus up. Yeah, we didn't. Smaller than 5. We increment it, and then at some point it'll become bigger than 5, and when it's bigger than 5, we set it equal to 5, become no longer focus up. Then the next frame comes, and we will say, oh, greater than or equal to 5. And then that'll trigger the decrement of it. Then it'll be smaller than or equal to, I guess. We can just add that. Then we're going to set it to 0, become focus up. Let's see. We should have 0, goes up to 5. It doesn't drain. It should be draining back to 0. But you know what? It should only drain back to 0 if space is continuously held. But it is not. So, where are we going wrong? I think we might be going wrong in so many of the else ifs, but yeah, we need to figure this out. It's like, so if our unfocus is smaller than 5 and we're unfocused up, we're going to go ahead and increment it. Now, once we become bigger than 5, we're going to set our value to be equal to 5 and become unfocus up. And that's where the not focus up comes in, where we decrement it. So if we print up this unfocus up boolean, we should maybe see it hopefully flip from true to false once it hits 5. That's the only thing I can think that could be messing it up right now. So let's see that. So we'll print not only the unfocus, but we'll do the unfocus up, and we'll print up that unfocus up boolean, and we'll print it up 10 pixels higher than this. So it should be true. And then once it gets to 5, it should flip to false, which it is not. So that is where it's messing up. So if unfocus is greater than 5, it should go to false. Which should get triggered. Unfocus up should be false, so it's only ever true. And it is only detecting it upon a space being held, but That happens so fast. Unfocus up. We need a better word than unfocus up for sure. That's just confusing. Let's just split them out real quick. Like we'll say if our unfocus is smaller than 5 and we're going up, we're going to go ahead and increment. Then we're going to ask, hey, if our unfocus is greater than 5, go ahead and swap it to false. Then we're going to ask, okay, if our focus is smaller than or equal to 5 and we're not focusing up, which we could probably move in within an else block here. But then we're going to decrement our unfocus. That looks right. And then we can say, okay, then if our unfocus is smaller than or equal to 0, we're going to become unfocus up true again. Yeah, our unfocus up is just not turning false. So we need this out. We need it to be greater than or equal to 5 here. Okay, now it should swap. Okay. Yes. Okay. So yeah, if it's held, it should switch like that. Okay, I think that's right. So we want to slowly decrement this, or yeah, decrement it back to 0 if the button is not held. So we do want to do that if space is not held. And then we need to modify our focus indicator by this unfocused value. So it should kind of tweak it. So yeah. Now I think we want this unfocused value to be less than this. I think let's try 0.5 and see, because it's gonna be like tweaking people a lot if it's. Oh, that's bigger. We want 0.05. Yeah. Let's try again. Let me just see. 0.05 is too small, I think. Because yeah, it only gets up if you hold it like maybe 0.15. Well, that's 3 times as much. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so the idea is anytime you use minus, this unfocused value gets you know, a value from 0 to 5 that is kind of going like this. And we're going to be modifying our focus X position, our focus indicator X position by this unfocused value. Now, we don't want what we just had, which is we aren't casting, our focus indicator's at 0, then our unfocused value is still at a 4.5. So that means if we were modifying our focus position by that value, it would still be 4 pixels to the right. So we want to decrement this unfocused value if space is not held, no matter what. So we'll do that here. This is if space is held. So this else if. Okay, no, we've got. This is if our space isn't held. Then we also want to drain our focus, our unfocus. So unfocus drain as well. So what we'll do there is self.unfocus gets updated with our current unfocus minus 0.15. Now we don't want this going smaller than 0, so we want to clamp it. So we'll say the math.max, which is the bigger of 2 numbers, either our current draining value or 0. So it shouldn't go beneath 0. So now we shouldn't have a positive unfocus if we just let go of the button. Yeah, it goes down to 0. So that would mean by the time you press it again, your unfocus isn't getting tweaked by that much. Okay. That's looking right. Yeah, that's looking right. Now, our unfocused value might be too much. 5 might be too much, because if we were to just see what our focus indicator looks like, it would be if space is down, we would render our focus gain. Let's just put a max of, if we have an unfocus of 5, it would be rendering it, well, that didn't work. It would be in our render here. So our focus indicator, let's say we had an unfocus of +5. How much of a disturbance is that? Okay, yeah. So like our unfocus will waver between being offset by that much X position or up to 1, and depending how long you hold it. So let's see if we need to update our focus indicator by our focus value and then render it at the focus indicator X, because we need to keep track of that focus indicator X to be able to determine whether or not it's a successful spell cast. So we'll do that in our focus indicator X, and then we'll just render it as its current position. So we just need to update our focus indicator X position by our unfocused value. So when we press the button, when space is pressed, this isn't modest regen. This should be focus indicator. So we did this wrong, I think. Where is our modest regen? Modest regen's right here. Okay, so this is actually, yeah, this is definitely not right. This is focus indicator incrementation. So we can say focus indicator rising. Now we want to update this. It'll be our current X position plus our regen rate. Oh, hold on. If our modest is greater than 0, yeah, why would we plus our modest regen here? I think, yeah, we want to update our indicator. Oh, see, this is a bad thing we did. We put modest regen because it's the value we wanted, but it doesn't have anything to do with modest regen, so we shouldn't have really done that. We should have made a separate variable. Like whatever our modest regen is the correct value to put in here, so 1.2. But we should have made a focus gain function or something that we set to 1.2. So we'll still do that, but that threw me off. Now we want to modify our focus indicator by that focus gaining value, which is that 1.2 plus a self.unfocus. Now putting in our unfocus here also limits it so that it doesn't go higher than the maxed out value, but we actually don't want to do this either. We don't want to, because whatever our X focus or our focus indicator X is modified by, that needs to be the value that we check to make sure it's in a successful cast range. So what we need to do is actually modify our self.focus indicator X to be equal to itself plus a self.unfocus, but we want it limited We don't want it to be any higher than our top value, which is our minus max. So we'll do a math.min here, and we'll pass in the updated value with our focus, and the second value is going to be this self.minusmax minus 2 for the thickness of the focus indicator. Now, we should be updating our indicator by that value. Oh, it was way too fast. But, oh yeah, see how it kind of jumps up? So like I'm gonna consistently tap space and watch the difference of how fast it goes up. Sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it goes really slow. It depends, yeah. So we need our unfocused value to be smaller than this. So we need our unfocused value to be, let's give us, instead of hard coding in a 5 here, we'll have it like an unfocused max, whatever we want to call it that. Because when we drain it to 0, it'll be a consistent value. So I think we want to drain it a little differently. No, we want it close to 0 because we don't want it jumping too erratically if you're tapping it. So I think draining it is the right move. Let's just give us a better variable here. Like we'll call it focus threshold or focus focus max, and we'll put it to 3 instead of 5 and see if that, let's see. So we'll put, and there's a better way to do this. What we can do is highlight all this, and every time it is just a 5, not that 0.15, but we can substitute any space 5s with space didn't work. Substitute space 5, yeah, with space self dot focus max. Okay, that should be it. So now it should go less. So I'm gonna just tap it and let's watch the focus indicator for how much it's changing over time. Yeah, see, sometimes pressing it goes really far. I guess the longer you hold it, the further it goes up. Because yeah, if we just tap it the same amount, it kind of gets up to a point. Yeah, see, we don't exactly want this. We want it to be modified. Yeah, we want the waviness to be modified whether or not we're holding space or not. Because if you get in the successful cast zone and then you just tap it, it's easy to tap it because our unfocus isn't ever going very high. So you can just kind of sit here and tap it and you land in there. So we need, if our focus is greater than 0, it needs to be wavering by that unfocused value. So I think we need to rehaul that a little differently. Because if we're not pressing it, it should still be wavering. Yeah, dude. Hey, sounds good. Have a good night, dude. Yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Sleep well, homie. Yeah, we want to... Okay, so we're going about this a little wrong, but we are doing good. We just want to do... Okay, so right now our unfocused tweaking is tied to whether or not we're pressing the spacebar, and we don't want that. We want to move it outside. We're already updating our focus indicator by our unfocused value, which is good. So we just need to set our unfocus before we update. And we messed up. There we go. Okay. So we'll update our unfocus whether or not we're holding the value. Well, still only if we press it. So we need it actually outside of the space press. Yeah, that's acting more correct. Because now depending on how big your unfocus is, will really throw off your balancing. So you can't just sit here and tap it lightly and stay there, because sometimes, oops, that's wrong. What happened there? Okay, why aren't we draining it to 0 there? Oh my goodness, here we go. So I think we only want to do, where are we doing the focus indicator drain is only when we're not pressing spacebar, and if our self minus is smaller than our max minus. Okay, so yeah, we're not full minus, then we're gonna go ahead and drain our unfocus. That makes sense. So why wasn't that working? Yeah, okay. So I guess we need to do this. I think we need to do our unfocus here. Quit. We need to do our unfocus if our spacebar isn't held. And after we determine, okay, so we would want to drain it if our focus indicator X is equal to 0, we don't want to be changing our unfocus. But any other time, we would want to be updating our unfocus to be this value here. So we'll say what? We'll say, I guess we can put it like, if our self dot focus indicator X is equal to 0, and we'll say if it's not equal to 0, then we want to set our unfocus to those weird values. Now that should have the ability, that should mean when we don't press any spacebar, our unfocus is still draining to 0. Cool. But it's just getting set to 0. I think we need to do this maybe after. Let's see. Nope. Okay. So this is if space isn't held, we're going to drain our focus. So I think we just need this. Why do we have... Okay, it's an unfocused drain. Okay. We only want to drain our focus if space isn't held. I think that's right. Let me just see what happens. Let me just see what happens again if this is on just after we do that. Let's see. Okay. See, that's really weird. Our unfocus should be, or our focus indicator should always be draining to 0, but it's kind of getting stuck there. So why is that the case? If it's not pressed, we should be draining our unfocus, but then we're saying we would modify it because we're on focus up. Oh, okay, so depending on if it's focus up or down, it's draining. Yeah. Like anytime we become focus up false, we stop lowering it? What? Okay, we need to go about this a little differently. We're close. We need better naming conventions, first of all, but then we also just need to have a clearer idea, because it's not very clear to say if unfocus is smaller than or equal to 0, unfocus up becomes true. Like, what does that even mean? So we'll need better terminology for it, but yeah, the problem is we can't just modify our focus indicator X by our unfocused value. We can't do that because it needs to drain to 0. But then we can't. Maybe we only update our focus indicator X if our... Yeah, maybe we only update our focus indicator X to be our unfocus if space is held. Let's see. Focus gain gets set. Yeah, we kind of are doing that, I think. So we're modifying... Oh, you know what? Well, yeah, we are modifying our focus indicator X on 2 scenarios, if we're pressing space and if we're not pressing space. And if we're pressing space, it gets modified by unfocus. And if we're not, it gets drained. So why is it that it doesn't drain to 0 all the time? Why does it stop there? Maybe we got our... If it isn't held, the higher of 2 values, and this is... Yeah, that's right. Okay. Because, yeah, our math.max would give us the higher of 2 values, either 0 or our current focus indicator X minus our minus strain. So see, why does it stop? Why does it stop? I don't get why it would stop. Okay, I think we need... I mean, yeah, see, that's weird. Our unfocus should always be updating. Why does it not become updating there? Our unfocus should always be updating. But we need to only modify our focus indicator by unfocus if space is held. I think that's the thing. So why is our unfocus not being updated? If our unfocus is smaller than our focus max, and we're on focus up, go ahead and increment it. If we're greater than the focus max, or equal to it, set it equal to the max and become unfocus up. False. And then our unfocus is smaller than the max and we're not going up, then we need to decrement it. And if we're equal to or smaller than 0, we set it to 0 and become focus up. So yeah, this should happen. This, unless we're setting... Oh, and you know what? Unfocus strain. Let me turn off this real quick and see if that affects anything. It would... That's weird. I would think that turning that off would make it so we don't... Oh, so it's our indicator that is wrong, not our focus strain, our unfocus. Well, no, our unfocus is incorrect too, because our unfocus should just sit there and modify like it is right now. It should just go between 0 and 3 nonstop, just like it is. But why would it stop when we're decreasing? Why is it doing that? it's under a spacebar not being held, but then... See, and we're not doing... Oh, you know what? We damn it, we are... Shit. We are doing that if space is held, aren't we? Well, let's see, because the space is held is this first block. Okay, no, and we're ending it right there. Okay. So yeah, we should be just... Our unfocus should be just going up and down nonstop. Like, nothing should change that. Okay, see, like, that's right. And then it stops updating when we're going down. Why is that? Let's not tweak our focus indicator by our self.unfocus until we get self.unfocus fixed. So let's see if that changes anything. Nope. That's really weird to me. I'm not sure why that's happening. Okay. I'm really not sure why this is happening. Let's try to get rid of this unfocus up, and we'll instead put like focus growing or something so it's easier to follow along with. And then we'll see if we can find any issues. So instead of focus up, we're gonna have focus, and it's more like, let's just call it, yeah, unfocus growing gets true. And it starts at 0. So we should go from 0 up to our focus max, which is 3, then back down to 0. And that should just happen no matter what. So if our unfocus is smaller than our max, go ahead, increment our unfocus. If our unfocus is greater than or equal to the focus max, we're going to become... Oh, yeah, we got to add right here. We got to add this. If this is smaller than... Oh, and you know what? Maybe we missed some parentheses here. If that is true, and our self.focus is growing, unfocus growing, then we're going to increment that focus. If it is smaller than or equal to focus max, we're going to set it to be focus max, become unfocus growing. Then, if our unfocus is smaller than our focus max and our self.unfocus growing is false, so we're shrinking, and I think we might need our parentheses here. Then we're going to shrink our unfocus. And then lastly, if our unfocus is smaller than or equal to 0, we're going to set it to 0. And become unfocus growing. So let's see if focus goes from 0 to 3 back down to 0. Now it should do this. Okay, that's weird. We got unfocus. Oh, we don't want unfocus up here. Unfocus up, any reference of that is actually unfocus growing. Okay. What is happening? It's just, it's not, why? I think it's, let's take out our focus, our unfocused drain real quick and just make sure that, oh, and that's gotta be what's messing it up. Our unfocused drain is throwing off our reset for our, okay, so it is somewhere in there. That unfocused drain was draining it to 0, and then we were becoming growing. So we were growing our focus by the same time we were decrementing it, which was why it looked like it wasn't changing, but it was literally being modified by a negative and a positive at the same value. So that's why it was so confusing. But it's almost like we need a third value of stagnant unfocus or something, so that we can know if we're not pressing a... how do we do that? I think it's just a... And you know what? Maybe we don't drain our unfocus. Yeah, I'm curious if we don't drain our unfocus. Let's modify our focus indicator X by our unfocus and see what that gives us, and see if the jump between like a +3 on our focus indicator X is too much of a crazy jump. But it would add more uncertainty to the you know, that's the whole point, is like it's supposed to be a wavering mind unfocused modifier to make it a little more difficult. So when we rise our focus indicator, we want to modify it not just by ourself, but by a plus self.unfocus. Now that should modify it. If we tap this, depending where, oh shit, and then we're not shrinking it. I thought that fixed it. But we modify our X by unfocus if... Okay, so how do we say... How do we shrink our focus? Hold on. We should be moving this to 0 whenever space is not held, which should be right here. We should be draining it to 0 minus our modest drain. I am very confused. We shouldn't ever have our focus indicator not at 0 when we're not pressing our button here. That's this line right here. Focus indicator gets to be minus our drain, or 0 if 0 is a bigger number. So it's almost like we're modifying, and see, we're not modifying our focus indicator X outside of our space press. So we really should only be modifying our indicator X if we have minus and we're pressing space. So I'm not sure what's wrong. Let's print up our focus indicator X and make sure that's not actually 0, because if it's 0, then we've got to figure something else. Let's see. It should be focus focus indicator. X. Self.focus indicator X. Okay, 10 pixels higher. See, it isn't draining to 0. It really should drain to 0, but only if space isn't pressed. Which I thought we had right here in the else. This else if block is if space isn't pressed, and we're setting our indicator X to be the higher of two values, either our indicator X modified by our drain value or 0. So why is it not getting set to 0? Let me just, I'm gonna yank this. We'll comment this out and we'll just say, why don't we put that floor here outside of our space button? So that's draining. That isn't getting stuck. Okay, so it was okay. So it's only flooring that value if space. Well, no, I don't get why it's messed up still, or was messed up. Because this should be if space wasn't pressed, go ahead and do it, which isn't any different than just updating it every frame, right? But let's say that fixes our problem. Let's just say that we always drain our focus indicator regardless of if it's being pressed or not. And it looks like, depending on where in our unfocus wave we press it, it either gets modified by 3, like that fast jump, or 0. So like if we tap it, we get different values of addition to it, depending on where that unfocused value lands. But if we hold it from here, see how it kind of like weirdly grows, because that's the unwaverness of the mind, but it should also shrink by the unwaverness too. It shouldn't just fall so even, it should also fall fast. So I think we should also shrink it by our unfocus. So we should also go self.unfocus subtract here. Self.unfocus, and then we can put, we might need to shrink our unfocus. So now it doesn't look like it's gaining. Oh gosh, we ran out of monos already. Yeah, I think we want to shrink our unfocus, but it looks like it's growing. It looks like it's growing at the same rate. And I think that's because we're modifying it by our unfocus, and then yeah. It is growing at the same rate because we're adding our unfocus and subtracting it in the same frame here. So it is like we need this, actually. Yeah, I don't know how to do this. Like we can say if love.keyboard is down, if space is held, then we want to update our focus indicator X by a positive self.unfocus, and then otherwise, we would want to subtract it. So what we can do, and yeah, we'd want to subtract our unfocus here. So maybe that will give it to us. We're looking for, when we hold the spacebar, we get a ramp up and a ramp. Yes, that's right. We just need a smaller unfocus threshold now. So if we go to our what do we call it? Unfocus max. Let's give it a 1.5 and see. Yeah. So see how we kind of drop in like little steps like that and fall. So now like when you're pressing space, it's harder to keep it in that green zone because you're both falling and rising in a unique fashion. So, and then your mana drains and you can't use anymore. So that's the kind of idea behind it. So that if you're in the green zone, that's a spell cast is active. So if you have enough manas, you can kind of keep it in that green zone. That's when a spell cast will be active. And then, you know, you're about to run out of manas, and when you do, you can't, you know, I'm keeping manas held down, but our focus just keeps draining, and we don't have the ability to regen manas or cast a spell successfully. So I don't know if I like the fact that the focus indicator rises like this when you don't have any manas. I feel like it should be just 0. So I think I want to say, I think I want to limit that. So like if space is held down and manas is 0, we're going to decrement to 0 pretty fast. So let's add that real quick. If space is down, and we're going to say if our self.manas is actually out, then we're going to go ahead and really shrink our value. That's not what I wanted. Yeah. If our self.manas is equal to 0, then we want to take our decrement of our focus indicator X, and we want to shrink it by our unfocus. So if we keep this held down, see, and we shouldn't be, there we go. So I keep it held down, spacebar's held down. I'll need to add a spacebar to our keylogger in the bottom right there. But now if space is held, you don't even get any focus, you're just donezo. But if you take a look at when we have, like look at our focus indicator when we hold space, it's like dingling at the top there. It should never go past 100. So it doesn't look, I mean, like it shouldn't go past 98 actually, but let's make sure that we don't. Okay, so when we update our focus indicator by our unfocus, we want to limit it. And actually, yeah, so the thing is we actually render based on our focus indicator X, which is updating if we press space, but then it's also re-updating here for a focus gain. So if we do our focus gain before our initial focus indicator modification here for the, let's see if that changes everything. Okay, that does look like it stops it. Okay, I like that. This is what I was thinking of. So like if you hold space, your focus is kind of like so steadily growing and unsteadily shrinking, and that kind of represents like the difficulty it is to concentrate on something. So like your manas, your red bar is like your exertion of focus, but the white bar is like the result of your focus. So at the beginning of the game like this, you know, you have an unsteady focus. So like it's hard to keep it in a constant state of green, a constant state of spellcast, because your mind isn't focused yet, and it's just like you have to really balance it, and then you're already out of, you know, you're out of manas, and then once you're out, you're like you can't get up to that rate to cast another spell because your manas is gone. So this is a lot like the feature I want. So now we just need to, you know, just give ourselves a boolean. We need to check our focus indicator X to see if it's in between the correct spell casting range, and if it is, then a spell cast becomes true or whatever, and then we can add the spell. So a little more lore for the game is like, I have it here written out, like, this is like, so Manus Minutia is like your focus exertion, right? So it'll drain when you use it, and it'll regen when you don't use it. And then there's a casting bar. So if you're in the realm of a casting spell, like a successful cast, it'll cast. This is the green zone. And then here's like the result of your focus, which gets modified by the waviness of your mind. So like that's the unfocus, we called it. So the last step is we need an element. So like in the game, you're gonna have different elements. So like how you control what spell you're doing is whatever element you're gonna be holding. So if you're holding a torch, then when you focus your Manus in the casting zone, it'll perform a fire spell. Or if you're holding an ice shard and you're in the successful cast zone, it might splay out ice in all directions or whatever. So like, I don't know if I want different elements to have different shapes of spells, or if we want to allow the player to choose like an output of the pattern of the spell before they start casting. But that's the current idea now. So we at least we've got a thing in the game to kind of control this. Now we don't have any elements in the game just yet, and we got geckos. We don't have any elements, and we don't have any successful spell casting abilities, but we've got the basics of these mechanics. Like, so now not only do we have the ability to walk from frame to frame, we have the ability to draw whatever sprite we want on whatever page, but we've got our spell casting mechanic, at least a rudimentary version of it, implemented today. So that's a good start, and that's enough to kind of get me through. Like now, tomorrow's episode will probably be more of sprite. Like today, we wanted to get our geckos to be rendering in all different directions. We only have a walking up gecko right now. I didn't even see any geckos. We've got only walking up geckos, so we'll make walking left, right, and down. And then in our entity system, we'll make them spawn in different directions so that they'll kind of, just as a way to test our entity system, there's not a level where geckos are going to be walking like this across the screen. It's just to test our entity system. And then once our geckos are good, we can add either NPCs or bad guys. But today marks the first magic spellcasting mechanic we've got for our game. We're not doing anything with it, but it's on there, and it's at least kind of readable. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna turn off the debugging for it, and then we'll do a commit, and then we'll call it a night here. So let's go turn off the debugging print for that, which is right here. We'll call this Manus render, I guess. And actually we do it, this is just the debugging for Manus, so this is just okay. So we've got that. Cool. We've got the first workings of our spell casting system. I'm happy with that. And then we'll work on like particle systems for like getting cool fire particles around you when you're casting spells, at least for, you know, certain elements. So it's like right now, if your character doesn't have any item equipped, your focus doesn't go anywhere, because you need an element to harness your energy from so that you're able to cast a spell. So that's just how I'm planning on doing it. But I don't want the player to ever be stuck like having nothing they can do to defend themselves. So like there is going to be a little game loop where every night, or you can just go back to your house and you can always get a torch there. So like your fire spell is going to be the default spell you can always kind of resort to, because you'll always have access to a torch. So I think that's going to happen. But we'll see as the game progresses. We still don't know what it's going to be like just yet. In our git diff, we took out our Zelda font because it just wasn't working at 0.8. We added 5 geckos instead of 800. We put in a new font, new small pixel font. Then we added all of our Manus and unfocus mechanics, as well as rendering. So that was a pretty good day. We'll do a git add, and we'll say added Manus cast bar and unfocus mechanics with rendering. Cool. We'll git push it. All right. So yeah, tomorrow we'll be doing more sprite stuff, and maybe what else? More sprite stuff, and then maybe, I don't know if we'll work on spellcasting. I think we'll work on getting better, what do you call it? Level design. So we'll get better level design, and then we'll continue development. But thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good rest of the night.